Diane, that brings you back to manipulation and I think things in the direction of our children. What have you got to report?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So this is a little bit more on the libraries. This was thanks to Kathy Mudge of Protect and Teach, who's been on UK Column with me previously, working really hard to expose the indoctrination of children throughout England. And she tagged me in this post that was on X that showed a BBC article. The headline on Friday, the 4th, when it was first posted on the BBC website, was "Trans Books Banned in Children's Library Sections." I do want to remind everyone that there are no banned books in the UK, but there are potentially collection decisions that can be made for age appropriateness in libraries, which is very different. The same article on the same link on Sunday, when I looked at it again, had a completely different headline. At this point, the headline was "Backlash as Reform Claims Trans Books Removed from Children's Library Section." Well, so The Guardian was also reporting on this story. And what that said in their headline was that a Reform councillor's boast about removing trans ideological books from children's library sections falls flat. Paul Webb, who's a Reform UK councillor who I'll come back to in a moment, said he ensured books and material were pulled from children's section of Kent libraries, but it emerges they were never there. Well, big surprise. All of this was actually misleading when we look at the headlines that were put on these mainstream sources. So I want to look at what actually was posted and what actually happened in the library based on what I was able to find out. Paul Webb, according to the BBC, is Reform UK's communities portfolio holder who oversees libraries. He said that the alleged removal of transgender-related books from the children's section of the libraries in Kent came after a, quote, concerned member of the public contacted him about what was seen in a particular library in Kent. So Paul Webb posted this video on his X account.
Good evening, everybody. Paul Webb here, your Reform UK Cabinet Member for Communities and Regulatory Services at Kent County Council. I was recently contacted by a concerned member of the public who found trans ideological material and books in the children's section of one of our libraries. I've looked into this and this was the case. I've today issued instruction for them all to be removed from the children's section of any of our libraries. They do not belong in the children's section of our libraries. Our children do not need to be told they were born in the wrong bodies. So from today, this will stop. Thank you very much.
So Lyndon Kimkaram, I hope I'm saying that name correctly, is Kent County Council's Reform UK leader who reposted that video and said that, this is great news. Paul Webb is doing wonderful work, etc. And I showed the photo here from the library where this was found, showing the book that was on the display. But then you see a little bit of pushback from this other account where it's basically sort of trying to expose, they think, Reform UK, whether or not this is actually the case or if it's just another form of activism, I'm not sure. But this account said that Councillor Paul Webb has openly lied as a councillor, a breach of the code of conduct, according to this account. The books they said were removed from children's sections were not in a children's section, and so you can see the photos here. And then they went on to say where this library was. It was a library in Kent County Council, but that the shelving was not in the children's section. It was in a display area. So this particular book that was being discussed is called The Autistic Trans Guide to Life, which is classified in the adult nonfiction section of the library, according to the library catalog. The issue here, however, is that I would say that everyone is being a bit misleading about this because the book was on display at the entrance to this particular library in Kent County Council during Pride Month, of course, during June, when a lot of this gets put out on display. But that, of course, means that anyone of any age who walked in the library would see it at the entrance because it wasn't in the children's section, even though it was officially classified and shelved in the adult nonfiction section. Any child who walked in could potentially walk in and want to look at the book. And I don't have access to the entire book itself, but I did find some preview pages of it from looking online. And it is very confusing for anyone, including any child who would happen to pick this up. And it's got definitions in it such as neutroi, Neutroi, describes a person who identifies as neutral or having no gender, being neither male or female. This can be associated with gender dysphoria or not. Gender fluid is an identity under the non-binary and trans umbrella That means a gender is fluid and can change. There's another one, pangender, means identifying as more than one gender. Pangender people may be all genders, not quite sure how that works biologically, or both the binary genders of male and female. Pangender people often use they, them pronouns. So that is what's, even if it is classified in the adult section, that was at the entrance to the library. And so I decided to take a look a little bit more into the Kent County Council Library catalog to see what is actually being classified under trans, because I know for a fact that libraries all over the country are doing this. And so I just pulled up two examples here from the catalog in Kent County Council. One is a book called Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out, where this woman, Susan, she interviewed trans young people, basically transgender or gender neutral young adults, and talked about how to represent them. And what we see here under the subject section of the library catalog record, the subject heading, which is the official sort of classification based on keywords and terms that are assigned from an official vocabulary that libraries use all over, is transgender youth, United States, juvenile literature, transgender children, juvenile literature. So juvenile literature means, in this case, as well as teenage nonfiction, that it would in fact be placed in the children's section of the library. And another one for very young children, When Leonard Lost His Spots, a transparent trail. That's not the word transparent, that's transparent, two separate words. What happens when a beautiful lioness discovers she was born in the body of a male leopard? The family is shocked, the transition begins, and an amazing story unfolds. Narrated by a young cub, When Leonard Lost His Spots is a sensitively crafted story that exemplifies how open communication can pave the way to acceptance in an ever-changing world. Join Leonard, Leona, and Cub on this unique journey. And again, here we see the subjects are listed as transgender parents under juvenile literature, transsexuals, juvenile literature, children of transgender parents, juvenile literature, and children of transsexual parents, juvenile literature. And so again, these are just two examples, and I'm sure there are many, many more in Kent County Council and in libraries across the country where there are these sort of trans books, or whatever you want to call them, being placed in front of children. So I think that both the BBC and The Guardian were being very disingenuous in saying, oh, this isn't actually a children's book, there's no such thing, and this is all a lie, and Reform is lying, and so on. But I'm going to continue to investigate this, and I have at least one meeting set up with one Reform UK councillor to talk about what's going on, and hopefully I'll have some following reporting on this next week, Brian.
Diane, thank you very much. And your report having an effect on our audience, as we can see from the chat box, people picking up how really, really dangerous this is, and of course how vulnerable the children are. So please keep up your research, and we will continue to keep warning about what's happening. Anybody who's tackling this, doesn't matter what party you're associated with, if you start to do the right thing, then you deserve support. So well done, anybody who is out there trying to stop this pernicious agenda attacking the minds of